There we are. Okay. Hello, hello, everybody. Hi, Libby. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm well. If you're in the United States, you're in the last 48 hours before Thanksgiving. So I'm well, given that I have a lot of cooking to do. But yeah,
Hopefully, you defrosted your turkey.
actually, I got a fresh turkey this year. My sister picked up
Nice.
a fresh turkey, so it doesn't need to be defrosted. So it's in my fridge.
Nice. All right.
Just got
Well,
it
a
from the farmer.
public service announcement to everyone, defrost your turkey if you haven't yet.
Yes, that's a good one. And take the package out inside. I remember the first time I did Thanksgiving decades ago, and I didn't know about that, and I left it in, and that was a bit of a disaster.
Yes,
So,
yes, yes.
yeah. So, everybody who's going to join us, if you're taking a break in your holiday preparations, or maybe while you're doing some shopping or something already, if you're getting started, or maybe you're just not, or you're going somewhere, or you're not doing anything, which is actually kind of what we wanted to talk about is, the holidays can, for many people, seem really, really joyful and festive. And then there's also plenty of people who that's not the experience. And there's maybe some level of grief around, what's starting the next couple of days or as we move through all of the holiday season. So if you don't know who we are, and this just comes across your feed, my name is Linda Downey. And I work with women overcoming stress, anxiety, overwhelm, women who are stuck with health issues. And I work with them as a functional health practitioner and a transformational coach to help them shift out of those patterns. And yeah, and that's who I am and what I do. And Libby, I'll let you go ahead and introduce yourself, and then we'll talk about this a bit.
Yes, my name is Libby Wright, and I work with physicians who want to transition their practices from traditional medicine to a more functional medicine style. I also work with patients and their clients who are struggling with chronic, kind of insidious health issues where just nobody's getting any traction. So that's me.
Yeah, and we would love for you to say hello if you're watching right now. This is streaming in 5 or 6 different places. So we may not see your comment in the moment, but we will go back, and we would love for you to just say hello. Where are you from? Maybe you're from a country that's not even celebrating Thanksgiving, but there's other holidays and other places where this concept could be showing up. So still stay and listen, but definitely say hello. So, yeah. So, Libby, I don't know, have you ever had that experience of it's holidays and I feel like the world around me is moving in this festive, joyful bubble and I'm not there?
Yes, I have. Um, when my well, I've had it happen a couple different times. One time, I was dealing with advanced stage neurologic Lyme in my spine and brain. We had 4 small children. We were running a medical clinic. My husband's a physician, and I couldn't really use the left side of my body frequently. I couldn't feel much from the waist down. I often couldn't walk unassisted. And trying to live up to expectations
Hmm.
and do all the things that I could have done when I was healthy, it was a big grief for me because I knew what I wanted to do, but I wasn't capable of it. I was not physically capable to do what had been the norm, what had been traditions. And I felt a lot of grief and even some shame around that because I felt like I was not being a good mom, being a good wife, being good, friend, daughter. I couldn't be the one bringing the fresh baked holiday cookies to the Christmas pageant, whatever it was. That was not me, and it had been me up until then. And so it wasn't even just around the holidays. It was like really jarring to my identity, I guess, because the person I had been, I could no longer be, at least in that season of my life. So that was one moment. The other was after my two of my 4 children experienced traumatic brain injury from black mold poisoning, and they were very, very sick. And I remember trying to make some holiday meals. Nobody could really come over. They were a mess and they couldn't handle the stimulation. We couldn't do anything holiday. I mean, I literally had a little Christmas tree that was like this tall because even the lights bothered them. I tried to get some gifts, but I didn't feel like I had much to celebrate, to be honest. I felt like my life was a disaster. We had cashed out our 401k to get the kids well. We had sold everything we owned. We were literally living on lawn furniture. I mean, it was rough. And so I'm like, what? I mean, yes, I can celebrate the birth of Jesus. That's great. But the rest of it, I'm not up for it. And
Yeah.
again, I felt this guilt because I was looking at my 2 younger children who were not experiencing that, and, they were relatively healthy, and I saw what they were missing out on. And I felt a lot of just it was really tough, and I think I was shooting all over myself, as our coach, Jesse, likes to say, like, "I should do this and I should do that, but I don't want to, or I don't care, or I can't." Sometimes I really wanted to, but I couldn't. I actually couldn't. There was no way I could. And so, those were my experiences. I know, other people have that, you know, when they lose a loved one, there's grief there too around holidays. Linda, have you experienced this before?
Yeah, as you were talking, I was thinking about, so for those of you who don't know me, who are, maybe just coming across this and don't know either one of us, but um, I have a daughter who passed away in 2019 after 15 years of really living at the hospital. She was born with some catastrophic medical issues and was medically fragile throughout her life. And so November, she oftentimes would be sick starting right around now. And because of all of the compromises in her system, she would be in the hospital invariably. I think in her 15 years of being alive, she was home for Thanksgiving 4 times, I would say, out of 15 years. And that continued, you could say that for Christmas too. And so while we had a lot of support, I felt like the holidays were this sort of like over there thing happening in the world, but I was at the hospital.
Yeah.
I remember like the Tuesday maybe, or even the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. So I also have a son who's 2 years older than her. So all of those years, when she was 4, he was 6. When she was 8, he was just 10. So I remember one time, he was pretty young still, but we were driving into the hospital, and um, he said, "Oh, are we going to bring?" We often would bring Thanksgiving dinner in and eat it at the hospital in her room and give it to the nurses, like we would bring in all extra
Hmm.
stuff. And he said, "Are we going to do that this year?" And what I heard him saying was, "This is our family tradition." And I felt really, really sad. Like other people are pulling out grandma's cookie recipes and getting together with cousins and sisters and making the pies and, doing whatever festivity things. And, I remembered like on Friday, the day after Thanksgiving, traditions of kind of seeing friends and people who are around in town. And I just realized he's not getting any of that. I mean, it was year after year after year. And so the holidays felt very surreal to me and distant, and then had a lot of sadness. And I said to him, "I'm sorry that this is our tradition. This is our tradition, going to the hospital." And that really was his entire childhood. So, yeah, so I hope that gives you a sense of, yeah, there was a lot of grief. And then when she died, as I said, she died in 2019. So then what was really, this is unique to us maybe, but then those next holidays, it was weird to not go into the hospital.
Hmm.
So I was missing her, and then missing, like, there's no reason to drive to the hospital anymore, but that's what we did for the last 15 years of holidays. So now what?
Yeah.
Like, we didn't even have a tradition to go to.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So, if you're watching this and you've been feeling any of that, don't think this is just, we're just giving words here. Both Libby and I have experienced this and felt it. And I hope that you can see that we've moved through it. Not that life might not bring something else again in the future. Maybe it will, but the possibility of moving through it is always available.
Yeah. And I love that you brought that up, Linda, because we're not sitting here stuck in our grief. We have moved through and we have, you know, we recognize that was a season of our lives. We recognize that's a thing that happened. And we recognize that we are now in a new season. And so I'd like us to talk for just a minute, um, especially around people who can get stuck in grief, because grief can become a tradition in the holidays.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I I love how you said that. I had a client probably 5, 6 years ago now, and I remember she was talking about April and Easter. Um, but her mother, so this client was probably in her 60s, I think, at the time, and her mother had died somewhere in that month, in the month of April. And so as we got to the end of March, we had a coaching call, and she said, "Here comes April, and April's always such a hard month for me." Now, I said, "When did your mom die?" It had been like 22 years ago.
Mhm.
"It's always such a hard month for me, and I'm sad, and I just don't even want to do Easter every year." So for 22 years, stuck in grief when that time of the year showed up. And so what we really worked on was, rather than um, remembering her mother through grief, we started to sit down and think of all the things, what she could do throughout the month of April to have her feel more connected to her mother, to honor her mother. Sometimes people think that the grief is what honors the person that's lost. If
Yes.
I stop grieving, then that means I don't love them anymore, or I don't miss them. And that's not the case. If I stop grieving, I'm doing them a disservice. I'm disrespecting who they were. I'm supposed to keep grieving. I don't believe that that's the case. Do you?
No, not at all. In fact, I think if that person really loved you, they want you to move on. They want you to live a healthy, happy life. Now, it doesn't mean like 2 weeks from the event necessarily. What I'm saying is like no one, I would never want any of the people I love to be stuck in grief and be taking a whole month to, in essence, honor me by grieving and feeling depressed and sad and and having that be my memory. I would much rather have them go out and enjoy themselves, serve other people, love on other people. um, and these are different phases. Again, we're not saying this is an instant immediate thing. It is a really important thing, though, that we recognize where we are in this, and that we can. There's no expiration or end date on grief. There are still times that I miss people that have been gone for decades. However, we can choose, because really sometimes grief turns into a habit, right, Linda?
Yeah, absolutely.
And so any habit cannot be broken. It can be replaced, though. It can be upgraded. So, like the example, I love the example you gave of your client and thinking about ways to remember her mother in a positive and loving way. So, are there things that maybe we could gift to our listeners and watchers today of ways, of habits maybe that they could upgrade their memory, their remembrance if someone has passed?
Yeah, yes, and we'll definitely talk about that. I want to say first kind of what Libby said, which is, it's different time frames, different things show up. So I do think it's really important, if you feel a wave of grief, which actually, to be honest, just over the weekend I did, about my daughter. There was this wave of grief. I can't even remember in the moment. Something triggered it, something that I was looking at or reading, but there was a wave of grief. And if you feel that, acknowledge it, be in it,
Mhm.
feel that.
Yes.
I can also share with you as quickly as it came, it was gone a few minutes later, and I went back to what I was doing. If we try to suppress what's there, that contributes to us staying stuck. So I do really want to acknowledge, you know, how important it is for you to acknowledge it. So if you're kind of operating on top of a level of grief, like you're going through the motions, I think it would be really helpful to take some time out, some quiet time, and allow yourself, if you don't want to do it, around family or whatever, just do what you need to do, and then give yourself some grace to go in another room, go to bed a little earlier, or take an hour off and take a walk outside and let yourself feel what there is to feel. So I think that's important.
Yes,
Then,
absolutely.
yeah, but then to create some new habits. Well, one thing is, what new traditions can you create? Because some of us are missing our parents or our childhoods. Like, oh, when I was a kid, we always did this or that, and it's just not that way anymore. So, one thing is, what's one new tradition that you can create within your own circle? Maybe it's not your family. Maybe you don't have family anymore. Maybe they're not close to you. But what's a tradition? So starting to, I think human beings just really like the feeling of tradition and the familiarity of things. And that's part of, at least for me, the sadness of we don't have that. Or the tradition that we had was to go to the hospital. But even then, I missed that, you know? So, what's a tradition that you can create so that you can focus on something new to put your energy and to pour your heart into? That would be one possibility. What do you have?
I was just gonna tag on that for a minute and say that sometimes it can also be a nod to an older tradition. So, like my grandpa always bakes. He's a pie baker. He still bakes pies. He's in his late 80s. He's awesome. And in fact, he taught my 23-year-old how to bake pies this summer. It's pretty funny. Um, but we can't always get to Michigan to see him. But I really wanted to carry that tradition on. So on Thanksgiving Day or the night before, we do a pie baking contest so that we're all baking pies together in our little family to just kind of pass that on.
Mm,
Um, so it's not exactly because he was the pie baker for like the entire giant extended family. And so I said, well, it's just us. It's just the six of us right now. So what if we did some, we kind of did a nod to it, but, and it still keeps the tradition alive,
mm.
but it's our spin on it. That's okay too.
Yeah, that's a great, like, that's creating your new tradition, and it has the element of the old.
Yes.
Um, I also think something that's really important is to continue to have a relationship. If your grief, so we talked about lots of things that could be causing grief. It could be just things don't look the same anymore. It could be, you're alone. It could be that you've lost people. If it's around loss, particularly loss of loved ones, then this would apply. Um, Creating a way of relationship with them throughout the holidays. Sometimes when we lose people, we put them in the past, and that's painful.
Mhm.
They can still be part of your present. So, for example, this is just one easy thing, but anytime anybody asks me, how many children do you have? I just got asked that yesterday. I always say I have two. My daughter passed, and my son is 22. I don't say I have a son and I had a daughter. I
Mhm.
don't put her in the past tense. And so I keep her present as a present part of my life and a present entity. And, when the holidays come, I make sure that I talk about her. We all love to talk about her. Anybody who asks me, I'm happy to talk about her. Sometimes people feel like, oh, I'm sorry, and they didn't want to bring that up. Everybody's different. Maybe other people don't want to talk about it, but I do. So for me, keeping her as a presence and keeping our relationship as a current thing in my life not a thing that's gone, has made a big difference.
Yeah, and to tag on that, my grandmother passed away before my kids were born. My daughter Anna Maria is named after her actually. She passed away just the weekend I found out I was expecting Anna. And one of the ways we keep her alive in our memory because she was a very big important part of our lives. My mom gifted me with a bunch of her Christmas ornaments. So
Oh,
when Christmas comes out, we talk about her and we talk about, well, these were her ornaments. Someday they'll be your ornaments. And it's almost as if she's passing it on to my kids, even though she can't be here. And so, even with physical objects or recipes or whatever, also, I know this is kind of like overplayed, but I'm just going to say it. Sometimes getting outside of yourself and looking and seeing that there's other people out there that need something
hmm.
and like and just opening yourself up to a new experience of helping someone else can be really really powerful. And I think these are all great things to talk about with people who are in our past. What about people who are in the throes of caregiving or in the throes of, maybe they're in the process of losing someone. Maybe they have a friend or family in hospice right now and they just don't want to celebrate. They just, they just, I mean, maybe they will be caregiving the rest of their lives. Or
Hmm.
maybe they are in the process of saying goodbye to someone that they love. What do we say to help them not just survive the holidays, but maybe even feel a little bit of joy, feel a little bit of peace at the very least?
Yeah, well, let me see if I can create this is another conversation with a client, and she was dealing with exactly that. So I'm going to see if I can create a bit of that conversation because it really shifted for her. She started off, it wasn't around the holidays, it was just that her mother is in neurological decline. And
Mhm.
as she's going to visit her every day, there's less and less of her mother there. And so what she was saying is, I'm just really sad. And um, I'm losing her. And uh, I'm so sad that every time I go, there's less of her. And it hurts me to see that she doesn't remember this or doesn't remember that. And so what we talked about, what we went after was, well, first of all, when you're focusing on everything that she's not, you're missing what she actually is. So whatever time there is that's left, maybe it's 2 months, maybe it's 6 months, maybe it'll be a year and a half. Whatever time that's there, if you can shift your focus to meeting that person wherever they're at and just acceptance with this is what I'm experiencing right now. I had acceptance drilled into me for 15 years of going to the hospital, right? And I did resist for several of those years. And at some point it was this is it. Like me resisting is only adding to my sadness and my grief. So acceptance. And then I think one example that my client gave was like her mom couldn't even brush her hair. So she would get there and she was like, "Oh, my mother would be horrified if she saw herself," because she was always a woman who was put together. So instead of focusing on that, what she saw was that she could show up and actually start brushing her mother's hair and be part of that and have her mother feel all taken care of. And then it became like a really joyful bonding thing rather than a symbol of what she was losing.
I love that. And our kids are we have two kids that are actors that act together sometimes. And one of the exercises in acting is yes and. So with yes and exercise, if you're not familiar with it, you need to accept whatever scenario the person puts you in. It's for improvisation and then add to it.
Mm,
And so that's very much like what we're talking about here. It's like, okay, this is the situation. My mother is declining, and how do I still have a relationship with her?
right.
So if she was always a woman who loved to be pampered, well, maybe we go do our nails once a week. Maybe we do go get a pedicure. Maybe we, whatever it is that we can do to, kind of enjoy these last moments. My dad was in hospice, and my daughter Anna would they for whatever reason, from the time she was a little girl, my dad just had this sweet heart, and he would just she wanted a pedicure, so he's like, I'll go do one with you. So he'd go get a pedicure too. And so when we got there, one of the last times that I brought her up, we actually wheeled him in his wheelchair with his oxygen and everything to the pedicure place. And they
Oh,
sat there holding hands, getting a pedicure together. And he had dementia. They didn't have to talk about anything. They could just he was happy, she was happy, and it was just really sweet. And I took pictures because I was just like, this is so beautiful. She's meeting him right where he is
yeah.
and enjoying this moment. Even though it's hard, even though it's heartbreaking, they can still have a moment. And I guess I would just encourage you, see if there are moments you can steal away from the grief. It that you have to doesn't mean that you have to, put it aside. It doesn't mean you don't feel it, but maybe just give yourself a hall pass for an hour to enjoy yourself, to take care of yourself, to enjoy that person. Um, you know, Getting respite care during the holidays can be really helpful too. Just going out and doing something for you that feels normal. Um, and if you're watching this and this doesn't resonate with you because you're not in this situation, you've made it all the way through this. Thank you for watching, first of all. But also, if you know of someone who's maybe going through this, maybe offer, hey, could I just sit with your loved one for an hour? I'll sit right next to them. I'll be right there. And just go get a coffee with a friend. Go get a pedicure. Go get a massage. Go take care of you for an hour because there
Mm,
are a lot of people who never get a break. And that would be such a gift to them. And maybe if you're grieving, you understand what it feels like to be in the relentless grind of caregiving. So
yeah.
maybe something you could do to help someone else is to just sit and be there and give them an hour. And you know, I just want to say that there is hope, there is joy, there is peace that is possible. And even if you are in a season of grieving right now, even if you literally cannot think of a single thing that you might be able to be grateful for, please know that we're here for you. Please know that you don't have to be stuck in your grief forever. Please know that even if you are in the middle of the storm will not rage on forever. And we would love to be able to help you. We'd love to be able to partner with you, come alongside of you, help you walk through this valley of the shadow, so to speak, because we all experience seasons. Linda and I have opened up and shared today about our seasons. Everybody has a story. Everybody has lost someone they've loved, and or maybe are losing someone they love. And we'd love to be able to help you. So we offer 1 hour free breakthrough sessions, and we talk with you about what's working in your life, what's not working so well, how you might be able to envision the future. And sometimes, honestly, we've been stuck in grief for so long we can't even see what it would look like on the other side. That's okay. What we'd like to do is be able to help you. So I'm hoping Linda will pop a link in our little area here so that you can book that free call with Linda or with me to just share your experience and see if there's a way we can help you to really return to yourself. One of Linda's programs is called Return to You, and I just absolutely love that because so often we can lose ourselves in that grief. Any last thoughts, Linda?
Yeah, thanks, Libby. Yeah, I think that what I was also just thinking about when Libby was saying all of that is, the holidays, if you look at the year as a whole, over the course of a year or the course of life, the holidays have a flavor to them and an intention behind them, but they really are just a microcosm or a small example of life, right? So life in general, sometimes it's feeling joyful and connected and there's lots to be happy about. And sometimes there's a lot of things that are pulling at you and blocking you really accessing that joy. It's the holidays. However life is going, the holidays can just maybe highlight that because it's kind of like this got a spotlight over it for these so many weeks.
Yeah,
Or
it's like a megaphone of your circumstances.
yeah, yeah, it's like that. It's like this spotlight, but it really just is part of how all of life is. And so, we're talking about this now because this is the time of year that it is, but really, I invite you to look at your whole life and where do you feel pulled away from having a joyful experience? Where do you feel like you're stuck, whether it's in grief or anger? We didn't even talk about anger tonight, but people can get stuck in anger, and that shows up in their relationships, and that shows up in how they move through at their job. So anywhere that that's happening, it's highlighting right now, being uh, highlighted right now, perhaps, but it doesn't have to just be about the holidays. So we really are committed that you have a difference, and we would love to have a conversation with you to help you have that difference. And if what I do, and there's several different programs, but if what I do is something that would make a difference and working with us resonates with you, Libby's got wonderful coaching and skills and modalities as well that she does. So we're both here wanting to just make a difference and serve you if it feels like it's the right thing, but you won't know unless you have a conversation.
Mhm.
So I did post the link, and whatever's happening for you for the rest of this week, I hope it's turns out to be better than expected, whatever your expectations are. And we'll see you next week, I guess, I'm sure, for another conversation. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Well, thank you so much. Have a great, happy Thanksgiving to our American friends, and happy holidays to everyone else.
Yep. Okay. Thanks, Lib.
Thank
Bye
you.
bye.
Bye bye.